Turkey, could you please elaborate? And also have a second question, because there is another country, Hungary, which has not ratified the application. And I wonder, do you have any information or have you had any communication with Hungary on this matter? Thank you.
Well, Hungary has made it clear that they will not be the last to ratify, and now Turkey has made it clear that they will ratify, and there are only 2 countries that have not ratified. So I think that problem will be solved. Then on the security compact, well, that just reflects the importance of this day, because it reflects that the cooperation between Turkey and Sweden on fighting terrorism and working more closely together as allies will be brought to a new level. This is about high-level cooperation. It's about annual meetings, and it is about developing a roadmap as the basis for its continued fight against terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. So this just further strengthen and also create a stronger institutionalized cooperation between Turkey and Sweden to address common security concerns, and in particular the fight against terrorism. This was also something that was offered by the Swedish side and welcomed very much by the Turkish side. It's in line with and in the spirit of the agreement we made in Madrid, but an example of how we take the Madrid agreement further and develop more concrete implementation by agreeing the security compact.
Okay, Anna Dolu.
Okay, thank you. Secretary General, can you please elaborate more about the function of the Special Coordinator for Terrorism? This is the first in NATO history, you said. And what kind of work he or she will perform regarding the terrorist organization PKK or also on FETÖ, for example?
So NATO has for many years played an important role in the fight against terrorism, and especially after 9/11, but we were also part of, for instance, the global coalition to defeat Daesh. We have different efforts and different work strands addressing the threat of terrorism. Partly this is now part of our new defense plans, where we address the 2 main threats that NATO is facing, terrorism and Russia. So this is a core responsibility of NATO. But it's also, of course, and our collective defense and our new force structure and the new force structure requirements. And then it's also about what we do in different NATO missions and operations. We, for instance, have a training mission in Iraq, where we help the Iraqi security forces to be trained to be able to ensure that ISIS does not return, and that they're ready to fight terrorism in all its forms and manifestations. And then, of course, our counterterrorism work is also about our different partnerships. We have partnerships, for instance, with Jordan, with Mauritania, with Tunisia and other countries, which is also then part of our efforts to fight terrorism. So terrorism is addressed in many different ways across the NATO organization, and therefore to have one coordinator that can coordinate the different efforts of the different divisions and the different tools we have at our disposal in NATO is something that I am absolutely confident can help to further strengthen and to improve the way NATO as an alliance is working together to fight terrorism. So yes, this will strengthen our efforts. It's also something which has been asked for by Turkey, and I'm glad that also as part of this agreement today, I have agreed to appoint a new coordinator on counterterrorism.
ARD.
Thank you very much, Markus Preis with ARD German TV. Mr. Secretary General, it was only today that Turkish President Erdogan linked the Swedish future in NATO to his own perspective in the EU. How much role did this play today? Were there any agreements, and what role did representatives of the EU play today? Thank you.
So first, I think that on EU, that's an issue. That's not an issue for NATO. It's of course an issue for the European Union. But what we agreed today what Sweden agreed today as an EU member was to support actively the efforts to reinvigorate Turkey's EU accession process, and also to help to modernize the EU-Turkey custom unions and visa liberalization. So this is something that Sweden does as an EU member to support Turkey's efforts to move closer to the European Union. And of course, Sweden can do that as an EU member. It's not for NATO to be part of that process, but again, I welcome the fact that Sweden, as EU member, can support the efforts of a NATO ally, Turkey, and that I agree to these efforts today, and that Sweden will support the efforts of Turkey on these issues.
For the final question, we go to Associated Press. Over there. Thanks. Over there. Thank you.
Yes, Secretary General. I asked you on Friday already whether you understood President Erdogan's thinking when it came to this, and we were very surprised by the EU element today. We know there was the timeline. President Erdogan met with you and the Swedish Prime Minister, then he met with the President of the European Council, who then tweeted that everything was okay and that he was going to reinvigorate, that they, between them, not involving Sweden, but Charles Michel and President Erdogan had agreed to reinvigorate the process. It's very difficult to sit here and to think that NATO has just taken this decision on its own without the EU. I mean, is this the right place, NATO, to bring EU in for its decision-making and processes?
But first of all, I think we now have to clarify what this is. This is not a NATO decision. This is a joint statement where Sweden, Turkey, and NATO have expressed the views we agreed in the meeting. And some of them are positions that NATO is expressing. I'm expressing them on behalf of NATO. Then there are also some paragraphs here which are not NATO policy, but actually expresses what two of the participants in the meeting, Turkey and Sweden, agree. And if you look at paragraph 6, that's about how Sweden and Turkey have agreed to step up economic cooperation to the Turkey-Sweden Joint Economic and Trade Committee. Both Turkey and Sweden will look to maximize opportunities to increase bilateral trade and investments. Sweden will actively support efforts to reinvigorate Turkey's EU accession process, including modernization of the EU-Turkey custom union and visa liberalization. This is not a NATO issue. This is reflecting a bilateral agreement between EU member Sweden and Turkey. But it is part of what we discussed and part of the joint statement which has been issued today. So again, NATO is not part of that. It's for EU to decide on EU enlargement. We focus on NATO enlargement here in NATO.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Good evening.